The night shift has a strange way of changing people. Maybe it's the silence, maybe it's the isolation, or maybe it's the fact that the world feels completely different after midnight. Most people sleep peacefully in their homes, while others work alone beneath flickering lights, serving strangers, driving empty roads, watching security cameras, or sitting in buildings that should have stayed empty. Sometimes, the people you meet during those hours aren't normal at all. Tonight, these are 4 true horror stories from people who worked late into the night and lived through encounters they still can't explain. Thomas had worked the late-night shift at Burger King for almost 2 years. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid the rent. Most nights were painfully boring. After midnight, the restaurant became quiet enough to hear the buzzing fluorescent lights overhead. He usually worked alone at the drive-thru, serving exhausted truckers, drunk college kids, and the occasional insomniac looking for greasy food at 2 in the morning. That's why, at first, the strange customer didn't seem important. At around 1:30 in the morning, a dark sedan rolled up to the speaker. The driver ordered a large double Whopper meal with a Coke. The voice sounded completely normal, but when the car reached the first window, the driver only lowered the window an inch, just enough to slide the credit card through. The windows were tinted so dark, Thomas couldn't see a face inside. The customer paid, took the receipt, and drove away before reaching the second window, leaving the food behind. A week later, the exact same thing happened. Same order, same voice, same car. And once again, the driver paid, then disappeared into the darkness without taking the food. First, Thomas convinced himself it was coincidence, but after the third time, he realized someone was intentionally buying meals, just to abandon them. Weeks passed. Then one night, the voice returned. Thomas already knew the order before the man even spoke. But this time, after placing the order, the man said something else. "I hope you've been enjoying those Whoppers, Mr. Hurley." Thomas froze. His last name wasn't on his uniform. Customers weren't supposed to know it. And before Thomas could ask another question, the car sped away. When Thomas got home that morning, a handwritten note waited on his doorstep. "I know what you did. You have 3 days." His hands shook as he read it, because he genuinely had no idea what it meant. The next night, the stranger returned. This time, he gave Thomas an address, then calmly demanded $10,000. Thomas almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because the entire situation felt unreal. 3 nights later, Thomas was at home watching television when glass exploded across the room. Someone had thrown a rock through his window, and by the time he looked outside, the street was empty. After graduating college, he couldn't find work, so instead, he drove for Uber at night. Most rides were harmless, but one ride changed everything. On a deserted road in the middle of nowhere, he found a car stopped with its hazards flashing. A middle-aged couple stood outside waving frantically. They warned him about a collapsed bridge ahead, then directed him toward a narrow dirt road through the woods. A mile later, he found the road they described, a narrow dirt path disappearing into black woods. Something about it felt deeply wrong, so he ignored their instructions and continued toward the bridge. And when he finally reached the bridge, it was perfectly normal. No damage, no collapse, Nothing. That's when the realization hit him. The couple had lied. Days later, curiosity brought him back. But this time, he explored the dirt road during daylight. Then suddenly, a woman screamed somewhere deep in the woods, and he ran. The warehouse complex sat on the edge of the city. At night, it became completely silent. One guard, one office, hundreds of empty aisles, and miles of darkness. At 1:30 a.m., motion alerts started triggering on the loading dock cameras. And again, and again. But every time he checked the feed, nothing was there. Then came the sound, metal scraping across concrete somewhere deep inside the warehouse. Slow, heavy, deliberate. As he searched the aisles, he heard footsteps. Not echoes, not machinery, actual footsteps. And every time he stopped moving, the footsteps stopped too. The gym was nearly empty at 2 in the morning. Only one person remained inside. A man running alone on a treadmill in the far corner. First, nothing seemed unusual, until the employee realized the man had been sprinting barefoot for nearly 20 minutes, without stopping once. Then the employee saw the blood. It sprayed behind the treadmill with every step. But the man never slowed down, never blinked, never reacted to the pain. When the employee demanded he stop, the man finally spoke. In a cold, raspy voice, he asked only one thing: "Are you there?" Moments later, the man vanished from the gym floor, then appeared outside the employee hallway, standing motionless beside the office door. Police never found him. No footprints, no trace, nothing. And to this day, the former employee still wonders what would have happened if that office door hadn't locked in time. Some people fear ghosts, others fear monsters. But sometimes, the most terrifying encounters happen with real people. People who appear suddenly, in empty buildings, on isolated roads, or outside your door after midnight. And the worst part is, you never really know what they wanted. If you enjoyed tonight's stories, make sure to subscribe. And remember, some jobs become far more dangerous after dark.